What is up, everyone? Nintern here. Long time no see. I am now on the right side of your screen for this video. I want to go over and sort of recap kind of where we were in 12.0.1, the early part of Season 1, in terms of viability and kind of looking at stats and logs and Ren'dorei and things like that, and kind of seeing where we're fitting in with the meta in Season 1. I also kind of want to discuss kind of what's coming and what's going forward, and starting with patch notes, and then kind of just going into some more loose kind of theory crafty stuff and just some stuff that we've been kind of going over internally. So just going over the patch notes, I'm not gonna read these verbatim. I've read them in previous videos, but notably we are getting cool blue eyes in 12.0.5. That is definitely the highlight for me. Just to kind of summarize the changes, soul immolation is no longer going to be passive through spontaneous immolation. It is now always in active use. The general guidance for this is to just use it outside of meta. And if you really need the fury in meta, if you think it's going to get you to another collapsing star, you can do that too. It no longer self-damages you too. It also heals you, but it's not something you should like think of as like a personal defensive. The healing's kind of nice. It's more of something for PvP to think about. Feast of Souls is no longer capped. That is a pretty massive deal, and it's kind of part of the good and the bad of 12.0.5. I'd say that's the main culprit. And it's partially a bug fix, partially a buff, because let's say you're playing Devourer right now and you're doing the first pull of Algalar Academy. Each soul you consume is going to give you 1% damage increase because of Feast of Souls. If I go over 20, or if I'm at 20 and it tries to generate a new stack, it can just totally reset my timer for all of those and just get rid of my stacks, which is kind of a problem. It's like basically uncapping it fixes that bug, and it also makes it's like a 5 to 6% damage increase for Annihilator, kind of as of right now, because of how much of an impact that had on our damage. Going over to Void Guard, my beloved Void Guard, my sweet child. I don't want to call it a rework. I kind of want to call it like a redesign, mainly because of Burning Blades. It's not, Burning Blades doesn't have Reap anymore, which was like the main thing that made something like Voidsguard Caster Cleave work, or just the main thing that made Voidsguard like pretty viable, because it had that big damage boost on Reap and Eradicate. Now it's just on Hungering Slash, and Reap's damage is just increased by 20%. This might seem like a buff on paper, but a 35% dot, 35% of Reap's damage is in reality a 35% damage increase to Reap, and it's just getting nuked to 20%, which basically almost invalidates everything else here. And Hungering Slash does basically no damage, and it has infinitely less usage and casts per, say I'm in a 5-minute patchwork, I'm going to cast that infinitely less than I'm going to cast Reap. It like the thought that went into this, I question, because Hungering Slash is so underwhelming and it just doesn't do anything. But some other stuff, again, I'm reading it verbatim like I said I wasn't going to do, but still. Void Ray collapsing star damage. Hunt buffed by 25% and resets the cooldown of soul immolation. Cool 25% increased damage to Hunt. The resetting the cooldown of soul immolation, I mean, you could have this say nothing and I would care just the same. Soul immolation is not a great generator. It is good outside of meta to get to meta faster, because the Fury gen is really good to get to stuff like Void Ray and then to generate souls that way. But then we're nerfing Student of Suffering to 4% mastery and 2 Fury per second instead of 8% and 5 Fury. And it's in this state it's still better than Flamebound, by the way. Blind Focus is also nerfed by 1%. So 2% cosmic damage out of meta, 4% in meta. But that's our changes for 12.05. I'm I mean, I'll be honest, I was a little hopeful at first. I was like, oh, sweet, I can play some kind of caster or void scarred build that also takes melee stuff. Like, that's my dream, right? I really want that to be good. But in order to do that, which I've shown this before, but in order to do that, I have to... I'm not going to fell the tree. But you can't take the 3 capstones, which if I'm playing, if I'm in this perfect world where this build makes sense and works, I cannot get all 3 capstones while getting all 4 apex talents and getting Calamitous. Calamitous is a 100% required talent for this spec. If you don't take Calamitous, good luck, because your sim will hit the dirt. I am moving my camera with banging my fist on my desk. But it is such a required talent, and it's so restricted behind Devourer's Edge. It just doesn't work. The D-Bite and Calamitous are, I find, interesting talents. I mean, even if it's just crit damage increase, I still think that stuff's kind of interesting. But I can't do it all, and I want to. I'm fine. I would be so fine in a world where Eradicate, like, I don't have to take this Eradicate stuff, but Hungering Slash, I need to be casting Hungering Slash enough to make up for that. Because even if Hungering Slash does a boatload of damage, I'm not casting it often. Out of meta, it's 30 seconds, and in meta, it's based on how many C-stars I can cast. But if I don't get my Apex talent, and I don't get the other stuff that helps me cast C-star, I don't get to do that. So Voidscarred is in such a weird place with these changes that are coming. Annihilator stays exactly the same. Your Annihilator build, the only change that's going to happen to your Annihilator build is that instead of taking, you know, I mean, you'll take Tempered Soul, but the thing is, you're not going to take Sight's Embrace. You're not going to take Gift of the Void either. These 2 talents are just going to go into Sweet Suffering, and then your build, that's all that changes with your build. And it's a 5 to 6% damage to do that. That's all you have to do. Annihilator stays exactly the same. Like, nothing functionally is changing with it. It's just benefiting more than Voidscarred is. And I think the idea on paper was for this to be some kind of buff or redesign or rebalancing, but all it's doing is nerfing Voidscarred, and I'm hoping it gets changed, but I'm kind of getting lost in the weeds here. But going back to kind of recapping 12.0.5 and 12.0 for us in this early season 1, I was going to say season 3. Moving on to looking at how we're doing in the raid. I just have Devourer pulled up, but I can go to all classes, DPS. We are performing very well. Thankfully, and I implore everyone to understand, it would be really bad for the health of the game if we were all 10 of these top 10 logs on every single fight. That would kind of lead to us getting nuked from orbit, and that's not what we want. We have fights where we're good. You know, we got some good logs on Imperator. We're basically the spec for Veilgore and Isaac. Chimeras, we're also very good because we have damage. We have damage for basically every ad set. Regardless of when we're on the up group or the down group, we always have damage for that. And Belloren, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Like, we can basically almost guarantee we're gonna have damage for everything because of just how Void meta works in general. And then if we look at specifically just the bar graph overview, if you just click it on Warcraft logs, you're gonna say, oh, Devourer's a little bit ahead. There are some things that are really important to look at. One is number of parses. We do have a lot of parses, but not as much as these 3 specs above us. And then, you know, some specs are going to get kind of moved around because they don't have a lot of sample data. Like Arcane Mage and Fire Mage, they have less than 1,000 parses on Mythic of every Mythic boss. But if I go to damage to bosses here, so we're still 95th percentile. We go down quite a bit. We're still kind of ahead of the pack, and it's still kind of gypped because we gain more damage when ads are present. So if I go to Midnight Falls and then Heroic, because like we are same level as Havoc pretty much. Our single target, our pure single target, which is basically what that fight is. If I want to do another example, I mean, I could go to Heroic Saladar. Like, we do okay. We scale much better when we're in these AoE packs and we're in these AoE fights. Havoc, I mean, Havoc's just kind of on the wayside right now because of Devourer. Like, that's just kind of how it is. It's the same way when Og came out. It's the same way when X, Y, and Z came out. The new stuff is usually going to be good. But going back to Midnight Falls, we're on the same level as Havoc, and we don't have our pure single target without ads present isn't super crazy or anything. But we are still performing. I mean, we're a fantastic raid spec. We have great damage. We have great cleave damage. We have pretty good. I mean, our single target's not bad by any means, and we do more single target when there's more ads present because we get more souls. And we have great mobility. We have same Demon Hunter utility. We benefit from Arcane Intellect. And so, like, if you have let's say I'm in, Joe Schmo's guild and we don't have a warrior and we don't have a shaman. Well, I don't care because I'm playing Devourer and I can just swap specs and then I can benefit from Arcane Intellect. And the same goes the other way. Going to Ren'dorei O for Mythic Plus score. We are a very, very, very strong Mythic Plus spec. I think we're still kind of finding our footing. You're gonna see, like, I've heard this on the bench, I've heard other people say this, and like it's been talked about kind of ad nauseum of us being like a Thanos spec of we're good at everything and we're gonna do a ton of damage and all this stuff. We do a lot of damage. I'm not contesting that, but it's more of a question of what do we bring to a group comp that makes us want to be taken over, because obviously we're not going to be in a phys comp. We don't do any physical damage. But let's say I'm, obviously Brewmaster's best thing in the game, whatever. But then the DPS core of Unholy DK Og Evoker, who's going in this third slot? Is it a Frost Mage? Is it a Devourer? Is it, it's a Demo Lock? It can be any of these specs, but we're not locked in. And I think my theory, at least, it's kind of baseless, but this is kind of my theory with Season 2 is we're going to have a more interactive tier set. Every spec is going to have a more interactive tier set. This is how it's worked for 6 years since Shadowlands, 5 years, I guess, since tier sets came back. You're going to have a more interactive tier set next season. That's just how it is. There's no guarantee whether that goes into melee stuff or if it goes into more Annihilator stuff. We don't know. We're not going to know until it gets announced or data mined or whatever. But I think that if we can get, because I think Havoc's a very good example of this. Havoc dominated Season 3 of Mana Forge Omega of the War Within because it had this insane funnel because of its tier set. It got that tier set carried over into Midnight, just in a nerf version, but still, if Eldrazi Reaver for Havoc becomes good, that becomes the best funnel spec in the game. And then it gets taken all these keys because it is so strong. And I think Devourer might just need that one thing, or that kind of comes through a tier set that can push us kind of into that solid comp where we have that damage profile, where we have this one special thing that we can do that makes us a lock for that comp instead of just being like an insert X spec that does insane damage and we're not really bringing it for utility or anything like that. But Devourers are pushing really high. A lot on the Chinese server, a lot on US, a lot on EU. I am currently 3288, not to brag, higher than Voodoo. Go to Voodoo's comments or ping him in Fellhammer and tell him that I have higher Ren'dorei than him. Please do that. But I'm stuck with these 213 keys that I'm trying to get time, but I have to plug all my keys, unfortunately. So we are working on that, but I'm gaming. But as for the talent builds between Voidscarred and Annihilator in this past month and a half, I think, just month of early Season 1, Voidscarred's been perfectly viable. As we all know, I've been playing a ton of Voidscarred. I have, since the changes were announced, I've switched off of Voidscarred to just maintain Annihilator and just keep going with that. But if for the next week, I guess, when this video is released, you can totally play, Voidscarred Caster Cleave or Voidscarred Melee or just like, all these talent builds that do all these different things and still be fine. And that's kind of been the joy of this month of early season, where I don't feel pressured to play one or the other. I've played the no Apex build, I've played Voidscarred Caster Cleave, I've played the Annihilator build. I have fun with all of them. All of them are so fun. But when we're going into 12.05 and what we're expecting from 12.05 versus what was in 12.0, we're getting a total... I mean, we're not getting that many changes, but it's just a total shift, no pun intended, of talents just because we're bug fixing something that should have been bug fixed in the first place. And honestly, if Feast of Souls was uncapped before, there's totally a chance that Voidscarred would have gotten different changes or better changes going into 12.05. And I feel like it's a little bit of a missed opportunity. I'm hoping in the next week that we can maybe see some kind of change. I'm not super counting on it, but I would like to see that. I would like to not see Voidscarred die a cruel, cruel death and then have to get resurrected by some tier set in season 2. But I mean, I don't even think that could save it, because the problem is in the talent tree. It's not a problem with tuning, it's a problem in the talent tree. But as for build, I mean, the Annihilator Cleave build has been dominating Mythic Plus and Raid as a whole. There are fights that Voidscarred, in my opinion, is better suited for. I think normal and heroic Saladar is a good example of that. Not Mythic. Mythic has way too many ads. That you can still, I mean, you can still play Voidscarred. Like, the thing is, Voidscarred Caster Cleave is only going to exist for another week, right? So my challenge is like, well, I want to tell people to try Voidscarred Caster Cleave, but it's like, well, why would I do that when in a week the build is going to just practically cease to exist, because it's so reliant on Burning Blades being on Reap. It doesn't cast Hungering Slash, it casts it once to trigger a Void Surge. So it's just another dead node, which just kills the tree. So I guess for the next week, I would really encourage you to give feedback about, you know, Voidscarred Caster Cleave, because it's my favorite build, and I think if people try it, they'll like it. But going forward, and also going forward, and as a retrospective of 12.0 for this past month that we've had the season 1, Annihilator is king, and it's going to continue to be, and it's only going to get better in 12.05, because you're going to have some, I mean, you're just going to do 5 to 6% more damage from the bug fix from Feast of Souls and Sweet Suffering. But as an overall kind of overview or recap of kind of what I've been talking about, Devourer is in a really good spot. And I think Devourer, during beta, Devourer, I think, got a lot of bad perception, because some people that reviewed it said they didn't like it, which is fine. I mean, not everyone's gonna like everything, but I think, and this happens with every new thing, but it was just immediately kind of piled on as like this boring spec with no buttons. And I think now that we're kind of starting in the season and we kind of have, you know, we have the data, we have people playing it and people playing it and playing it, playing it, playing it. We so many keys, but there's like 10 million keys done last week. I've seen so many more people enjoying Devourer and loving Devourer, and it really makes me happy as someone who makes content for the spec, who works on the spec and is devoted to the spec. It makes me so happy to see people enjoying it, and it also makes me want it to be better. I'm always going to want it to be better and to improve, because this spec has so much potential, and there's already so much nuance and skill. Like, the skill ceiling's it's in the moon. There was a Twitch clip, I can't pull it up right now, but there was a clip of one of the Racer World First Raiders playing Devourer, and they were like, you need to be on Heroin to play the spec, because you're managing C-Star cast and Devourer cast and Reap, and then you're having to teleport around to dodge mechanics, but also you want to cast C-Star and you don't want to overcap your souls. There's so much going on with just so few buttons, and I think that's where the spec really shines, and it allows for some of the best skill expression, I think, in the game without being too overwhelming to a new player, like how Arcane Mage used to be back in the day, of just the spec that requires a doctorate in calculus to even play. But going into 12.05, I mean, we're still keeping that. That's not changing. It's just Voidscarred's dying and Annihilator's king and is just going to get better. And I'm happy with that. I mean, I'm happy that Annihilator's good. I like Annihilator. I just the when I'm most happiest is when we have builds that can compete with each other and are good at different things, and I can swap between hero talents kind of at free will and not feel like I'm kind of trolling my key. That's kind of where I stand with that. That's kind of where I stand going on 1205. Also, go ahead and join my Discord and join the Fellhammer to look at my written Devourer guide. And be sure to ping Voodoo in the Demon Hunter Discord and tell him that I have more Raider IO than him. He will probably give you Discord Nitro or something. But with that, everyone, have a good day.